two questions. The question number one is, how much of the factory work that you have seen there in that time had handwork involved? And then the second question is, did you get the majority part of your training in that factory, or was that somewhere else?
No, I got all my training primarily in the factory, because we had girls that, bear in mind that, well, some of the cutters I worked with served in the Second World War. This was way before fusible. So we started out with canvas garments. We started out with girls that did hand felling, hand buttonholes. Yeah. And then obviously they retired. We got new girls in. Fusible was the thing when I started, but we still did canvas garments as well, and full open coat garments. So there was two lines. There was a coat line, a trouser line, and then there were specials. And all the utility hands did all the specials. And we used to make for other people. I never realised at the time, but we'd do measure work that were for other small independent tailors. So they'd send work into us and it'd be bespoke garments. So we had everything going on there. So I was lucky that I saw it all, but I had to fight to be shown it all and to get to understand it. But when you're around it all the time, and there was no, if you wanted to go and use a machine at lunchtime, you could go and use a machine. Anybody could do what they wanted in your own time. So, and when you're moving around, you see people out there doing things, and you pick it up and you think, oh, I'll have a go at that. And of course, then I had a machine at home, and you start pissing around by yourself, and then you start honing and developing your skills. And even though I've seen all these garments, I don't consider myself a finished product in any way, shape or form. I don't think many people do in anything. There's always something that, there's always something you're like, how can I get that thinner? Can I get that better? How, can I press that this way? But trust me, I've seen so many garments that it's eye-watering. It's eye-watering. So everything I did was in-house, was trained in-house. But I then spoke to my father, I think I'd be about 27, 28. And I said, look, I need to go to college. He says, what for? I says, well, I need a paper qualification. I said, if this place closes, my dad turned around and he went, you must be fucking mad. Do you think this place is ever going to close? And I went, I don't know. He says, but I haven't actually got any paper qualifications as such. So he says, oh, Jesus, right, okay. So they sent me to Leeds College of Art and Design. Well, it wasn't called that then. It was called the Jacob Kramer College.
Right.
I used to go there one day a week, which was on a Wednesday. But I learned really quick that I knew, without being big-headed, I knew more than every tutor in that place apart from one. And his name was Peter Quirk. And he was typical Jewish tailor, old school, proper old school, lovely, lovely man. The most round back I've never seen in my life. 5'2", stereotypical, quite feminine with it as well, but a lovely fella. So
what was his main domain?
He did pattern drafting.
Right.
But you wanted to know it, he knew it. You had a question, he knew it. But it was amazing. He had a piece of cloth on the wall on a board, and he'd draw full scale patterns on it, quarter scale, whatever. It was amazing. You wanted a hood coat with a hood, boom, it was up there. You wanted an Angus, Sherlock Holmes job, bang. Yeah. He'd done it, and he was amazing. So that was on the morning. So I had no car, incidentally. I used to have to wait for my dad to turn up with second car, then I'd jump in car and drive to Leeds from Donny. And my mate worked for an insurance company in Leeds. So on a morning, I'd go to college. It started at 9 o'clock. Bear in mind, we started working factory at 7. So it were doddle. And then in the afternoon was actual practical work. So we did the usual thing. You started with trousers, then a waistcoat, or it might have been a waistcoat, then trousers, then a coat. And I was like, I don't need this lot. I know more than you. But actually, my tutors actually admitted it, because they had a pressing room, and on a Friday was the only time they turned the boilers on, because it had a big boiler and it had 3 or 4 Hoffman presses in with 4-inch steam pipes. And they actually used to come to me and say, before you go, will you press all the coats off for us? I was like, yeah, sweet. You'll give me my mark for afternoon, my tick? Yeah. So come 12 o'clock, I'd be out on the lash round Leeds with my mate from work, from his insurance job, and we'd be drunk as skunks, and getting home was another tale, but I'm not going to divulge anything other than that.
Sure.
So I only did the morning, but I always got my mark and I always passed everything because, and when I had to submit the work, I just submitted it because it was there. I could do it. It was no drama at all. But the pattern drafting I really enjoyed that with Peter. And it was very good. But it don't float me boat. There's a lot said about pattern cutting and stuff. Personally, I think it's overrated. Cutting. I think it's very low. It's not that skilled to do it. To be honest, in my opinion, if you have confidence, I've seen so many stuff cut. I could probably freehand a pattern. I mean, proper freehand, not that rock of ice shit, which is guessing with a few cardinal points.
Right.
I mean,
right. Actually, you're talking about this. I'm so interested in this because I also believe that one could reach a stage where you just, like you say, completely freehand the pattern. Now, a question, Des. What would you say someone has to know to be able to completely freehand the pattern?
Well, you've got to have seen enough of it to know what it looks like. Firstly, you've got
lots of references.
You've got to have that eye. You've got to understand the proportion as well. You could freehand a pattern and it could look right, but everything would just be completely wrong. It'd be all the wrong. Everything would be in the wrong place. And there's an old phrase, as you know, you can have a garment full to size, but don't mean it's going to fit because all the size is in the wrong place, whether it's horizontal or vertical. But when you've seen the numbers I have, and particularly with bespoke, you have the fitting, which makes it safe for everybody. And there's always a tweak here. I don't believe these people that say they can cut it without a fitting. Well, you'll probably find a fault somewhere with fit. But then again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The fit is dictated by what you perceive as a good fit and what your customer thinks is happy. So what you think acceptable, I might not, and vice versa. And you can chase that little bit to nth degree, but it's always at the sacrifice of something else. There's always a cut-off point. Unless you've got the wealth of Croesus and you don't need the money and you're doing it for a complete hobby, then fine. Otherwise, always a cut-off point because you're just like, can't put any more time into it. We're where we're at. And you're always 95, 98% happy with every garment. You're never 100% happy. I put this coat on this morning. I'm like, I love this. It looks great. But trust me, the summer, because I've seen, as soon as I put it on, I'm like, shit. There's something. Nobody else can see it, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
No many trades that are like that.
Right. And so the numbers you say, I still cannot visualize how many garments that would be like in volume. But which parts were purely done by hand, except for some of the obvious things? But what was the main handwork department in that factory?
We eventually went to a completely engineered garment. So there was it ended up where there was no handwork in them. There was very little, maybe the back of the collar tabs, and that was it. Everything else was just engineered out. It was just machined out. There were canvas went, 3/4 canvas went, half canvas came in. That's really where we stopped at. Fused front, half canvas. So all the handwork went. The girls that had the skills, it had gone. But that wasn't our fault. We were CMT. We want our own label. So we made for Burton's, we made for Marks and Spencer's, British Home Store, St. Michael. St. Michael was a leg of Marks and Spencer's. We also made for Centaur, but we also made for Van Gild's, Crombie, Berwin & Berwin, Givenchy, Yves Saint Laurent. So we had lots of different, but there was no difference in the make and the quality. The only difference in the end product was the cloth was slightly better quality on the high-end stuff, and it had a little bit more details. But other than that, trust me, Reza, they went down that same production line. The only defining difference at the end with the price was the label that went into the garment. But we ended up fully engineered. So the skills went. The girls that had these skills, they'd gone. They were retiring. They were bloody 70-odd-year-old. That worked 6 years in a factory. Yeah, they died. There was a lot of girls that died cancer. I still get a message now and again, oh, do you know Jenny's dead? I'm like, no. There's lots of them that have died of cancer. Now, I don't know if that's linked back to working in a factory with asbestos lagging around pipes or anything, but the skills were going. But it wasn't us that dictated it. It was the buyers. So the buyers would say, look, we're gonna pay you this for a garment, which I wasn't privy to. But you could see it were just getting de-skilled and de-skilled and de-skilled. And the factory just ended up becoming more and more automated. So it became with auto jigs. So, you'd have girls that were just loaders. They were just called loaders. So all it was, they'd just pick a forepart up, they'd pick a facing up, they'd stick it onto a jig that's got all the raised bits to put these into the lapel tips perfectly. They'd clamp it down, close another clamp on top of it, stick it into a machine, press the pedal, fire and forget. They'd have 3 machines. That's one. They'd turn around. That's sewing while they're loading another jig on that machine. And then same again on this. The trousers just, there was a carousel of overlockers, all worked on light sensors. The girl would just feed the first element of a trouser in. Machine would take it, sew around it. As it's sewing around, she's loading another. So, this girl walking clockwise or anti-clockwise all day long, for 10 hours. So it became just a case of a lot of the girls just became loaders, and it just became more and more automated. The pressing became less. All the Hoffman presses went, the old-fashioned double leggers, the J1, the chest blockers, the nip and drape machines. They all went. We have got automatic French ones in from, Italian ones, MacP, which were all carousels and stuff, and steam dollies that they put on and it blew it from the outside.
Yeah.